How useful is your everyday carry? I don't mean hypothetically, but practically. How useful are the tools in your pocket, and how are you using them on the daily basis? Today, we are going to be looking at how to build a super useful EDC, and we're also going to be talking about how to integrate different tools and philosophies that you might find out there into your current carry or into a future carry. And to do that, we're going to be putting my everyday carry to the test with this 1987 Evo Chopper basket case. This thing, I know it's got compression, and that's about all I know about it. So we're gonna see if we can get this thing to turn over, possibly even get it running with just the tools that I carry on an everyday basis. So the two guiding philosophies or principles that I use whenever I'm talking about my EDC or somebody else's EDC is first, carry what you need and need what you carry. I'm a big proponent of that. And then two, that you should personalize your everyday carry to be what you actually need it to be, not what somebody on the internet told you it should be. Now, that being said, I do think that there is one piece of gear that every single person should carry, and it's a good pocket knife. Humans have been using sharp, pointy sticks for a long time. It just gives you like one more tool to engage in your world, to have a little more control over your everyday, and possibly even to help people out. So the knife that I have on me today is just a Boker Atlas. This is from the Boker Plus series. Great knife. As you guys know, Boker's a sponsor of the channel. More on that at the end. But you know, you got stainless steel body, you got a D2 blade. It's got kind of that cool Warney blade on it. And then the thing that I really like about this particular one, they have a million versions of these, is it kind of looks like a mariner's knife when it's closed up that way. But if you're the type of person that doesn't carry a pocket knife or doesn't regularly carry a pocket knife or hasn't found a use regularly for a pocket knife, which I think if you carried one, you would definitely find that you did have use for it, I would probably recommend that you carry like a Swiss Army knife. The cool thing with a Swiss Army knife is that it's not scary, it doesn't have to lock, it's not a dangerous looking knife, but you also get a couple tools in it to be able to conquer your world and be able to do some stuff. Another good knife in that category, of course, is the Milwaukee 1505. So the Milwaukee 1505, most people are just opening packages and boxes on the daily. So you got a box cutter, you always have a sharp knife if you're the type of person that doesn't like to maintain your knives, and you get a little pry bar driver locking arm there on the back of the knife, which is really cool as well. Now, some of the purists out there might be arguing with me at this point and saying, well, those aren't pocket knives, those are multi-tools, which is a perfect segment into carrying a multi-tool. Incorporating a multi-tool into your everyday carry can be a decision that's littered with a lot of landmines. The reason that I say this is there are a lot of really good multi-tools out there, but what I've personally found after years and years of testing, years and years of doing stupid projects like this, and just carrying multi-tools for the various reasons that I need them, personally, I haven't found a multi-tool that I feel is everything that needs to be rounded up into one package. So I personally carry two separate multi-tools. Now, I've said personally about 1,000 times, and the reason for that is I want to stress, remember, carry what you need what you carry, and make sure that your EDC is personalized to you. So for me personally, as somebody who likes to tinker, as somebody who likes to work on things, I'm a journeyman carpenter, I'm a journeyman concrete specialist, amateur engine builder, whatever you want to call it, I like to have a few selections of tools on me. So in my pocket, every single day, I carry a Victorinox Compact. If you've watched the channel at all, you know that's what I carry. One drawback for most Victorinox knives or Swiss Army knives pocket multi-tools is that you don't have access to pliers. Now, I know that there are a couple that have pliers, they're really big, they're not very comfortable in your pocket. If you carry those, right on, that's super rad. Where the Compact fell short for me was that I really needed a Phillips head screwdriver. So what I ended up doing myself is I actually modified my Compact, made my micarta scales for it, and threw a screwdriver on it. I got a video here on the channel if you want to check it out. Now that goes in my pocket every single day, and this covers a ton of the things that I need covered with a multi-tool. In my opinion, I think that there are three main reasons or three very useful tools that you're going to get from a multi-tool that you obviously can't get from a knife, and that you really don't need to carry a full set of tools around for you to make these things work for you. One of them is a pry feature. I think that a good multi-tool should be able to pry on things. Now, I'm the type of guy, I pry on stuff all the time. I'm always trying to pry stuff, I'm always trying to move stuff, I'm always trying to whatever. Another thing that I think a multi-tool should do is I think a multi-tool should have a good driver. Now, if it has a pry feature, chances are that's just a flathead screwdriver on the multi-tool, which is great. And then I really think that if you're engaging with the world at all, and if you're doing anything in the world at all, my experience is that you really need a Phillips head screwdriver on your multi-tool as well. And then finally, as you kind of evolve into the bigger kind of standalone multi-tools like Leatherman, I think a good set of pliers is really important with the multi-tool. Now it's pliers where we hit into another interesting realm of there is, in my opinion, there's not a perfect multi-tool that kind of covers everything I feel like a multi-tool should be able to cover. Now, This is the Leatherman Wave. I keep this in my EDC kit. I don't carry it in my pocket, but I have my EDC kit with me basically every single day and every time that I'm on the road or traveling, where I would be in a situation like we're dealing with this bike right now. And I've got a full video on the breakdown on that if you guys want to check it out. The Leatherman Wave itself, specifically, this tool, great tool. You've got a knife blade, you've got a file, you've got a saw, you've got drivers, you've got pry, you've got scissors. I mean, this thing has a lot of stellar stuff. You've got the pliers with the cutters on it, which is awesome, super awesome. But the place for me that this falls short and has then required me to carry another tool with me on a regular basis is the pliers. And the reason is that these pliers are great for grabbing, they're great for pulling, they're great for cutting, they're great for a lot of purposes that you would use a plier for. But what I find in my day-to-day that I need pliers for more often than not is actually some sort of a wrench, like a crescent wrench or like a good pair of Knipex, which we're gonna look at here in just a minute. Now, I do wanna show you that there are multi-tools on the market, like good multi-tools on the market, because you can find a lot of cheap, not good stuff like on Amazon, that kind of try to address that. There's this newish tool from Gerber called the Dual Force. It's kind of an interesting idea. I did a whole video on this as well, because again, I like multi-tools, so I'm always trying out new multi-tools, and the system that I have now is the system that I found works the best for me. The Dual Force is really neat because you can do nuts and bolts with this. Now, obviously, if you've got a nice chromed bolt or something on a nice build or, you know, a nice vehicle or whatever, don't run this over it. And this is only gonna give you so much torque. But if we're talking about just tools in your pocket, tools that you can carry around easily to help you when you need certain things and not carrying an entire socket set, unless that's what your life requires, the Dual Force is a pretty good little set of pliers that can pry, it can pull, and it can do nuts and bolts. But the problem with the Dual Force, you can watch the video for my full breakdown on it, is that it's missing some of those other key features that I need in a multi-tool. Now, the rad thing is that in your life, you may not even need a set of pliers. Like, a set of pliers may not even be important for you. I would recommend, if you're interested in that idea, maybe carrying a pair of pliers around with you. And if you're gonna do that, and this is a good way to know if you even need more of a multi-tool than, let's say, like a Victorinox, you can grab yourself a small pair of Knipex pliers. So these are the pliers that I carry every day in tandem with my Swiss Army knife. So I essentially have the perfect Leatherman, just not together yet. We'll see what we can do about that. I find that these Knipex pliers are really, really handy. I use them all the time. And the really cool thing about this is, you know, comparing the Knipex to something like the Gerber that I just showed you, or even like the Leatherman Crunch, which is actually a pair of like locking vice grips, this performs really admirably, especially for how small it is. And you can see this thing gets really big, and I actually have attacked like axle bolts and stuff that are that size. And it's not easy, it's not fun, but I have gotten them loose, which is pretty dang cool. So kind of my in-pocket every day is this, and then in my EDC kit, I also carry this because, again, saws, cutters, pliers, like this, it's just a really handy tool to have around. Now, one thing that I do want to say about carrying multi-tools. So you'll see this a lot, and there's no judgment here, right? Like, I know a lot of people that carry a lot of things in their pockets just because they like to carry a lot of things. They like to have multiple knives on them to show off. They like to have coins on them. That's totally rad. Not my jam, totally rad though. But one thing that I will say about carrying multi-tools, and this is an EDC principle, that something that you should be carrying around with you that you can always have with you no matter if you have a knife or not on you, is being able to critically think, assess, and engage with your world. And what I mean by that is that a multi-tool and a knife can be insanely useful. I mean, all the things that I'm doing on this bike right now, I'm basically doing with a couple multi-tools and a knife that I have on me every single day. But the cool thing about that is when you know how to engage with your world, when you understand how things work, not only are you able to keep yourself rolling and keep yourself kind of moving and solving problems and doing what you need to do with the tools that are in your pocket, but again, you're able to help other people, which I think is also huge. So with the things that I have in my pocket, like I can rewire outlets, I can, you know, attack a lot of problems on different vehicles. In the last 8 months, I think I've driven something like 30,000 miles. I drive a lot every year. A lot of that's for the channel and working on the road. And then a lot of that's just for myself because I like to drive and I like to go to see things and I like to do things. And the tools that I've had in my pocket have been really helpful in helping other people out in all of those travels as well. So I want to give you guys a practical example of what I'm talking about here. So I got the battery hooked up. I was kind of trying to assess the bike, and it's got some starter stuff going on here. It seems like everything's hooked up. I'm still fishing all that out. But what I really needed was a test light. I needed a way to be able to confirm if there was power going somewhere or not power going somewhere based on how the ignition works. Obviously, I don't EDC a test light because I don't need to. Now, if you're a full-time mechanic that's assessing electrical problems all the time, maybe that's something that you would do. But given the couple tools that I have on me, I was able to take the working headlight that was on the front of the bike. I was able to take all that apart. I was able to wire some stuff up. I was able to create a test light that I can now see if there's power going to any certain areas. So I'm just gonna do this on the battery to show you guys what I'm talking about. So I just need to ground it out. I need to hit a positive, and look at that. So now I can use this really janky built test light, essentially, to go through the bike and try to assess where I'm not getting spark or where I'm not getting power going to where I need it to go. Now, obviously, I can just go to a local O'Reilly's and buy a test light for $5 or $10, but if we're talking about broke down on the side of the road, talking about helping somebody on the side of the road, just using what I have in my pocket. So just another example of not only how handy just a knife and a multi-tool can be in the world, especially if you consider actually what you're using that multi-tool for, actually what you're needing it for, and then also knowing how things work so that you can use a multi-tool and that knife to the best advantage possible. So flashlights are another really common EDC item that a lot of people carry. And I think the funny thing about a lot of flashlights is that I see people carrying flashlights, big flashlights, and anytime they need a flashlight, they're using the light on their phone. And this is a perfect example of need what you carry what you need. I think for a lot of people, a phone flashlight works really great for 99% of the things that people run into. Now, me personally, I carry a little pocket flashlight with a hairband around it. And I've mentioned this before, but this might be the first time you guys are actually seeing me use it as a headlamp, because I can attach it to my glasses because I have built-in safety squints. The other cool thing with the hair tie is that not only does it hold it to your glasses, but also it's just a handy little thing to have on you to like put things together. Or if somebody with long hair needs a hair tie, you've got one and you can be helpful. Now, what I found works for me best when it comes to flashlights is one, my phone's not gonna work, so I do need an actual flashlight. And two, I like something small. I like something that runs off of a simple, easy to find battery. This just runs off a AA. And I like something with 3 different light settings, depending on what situation I'm in, if I need bright, if I don't need bright, if I'm low on battery and I don't wanna go full bright, things of that nature. But that conversation between flashlight and phone is so intertwined. It transitions into a EDC item that I think most people forget about or don't even consider a real EDC tool, and that's our phones. Phones are always a catch-22 for me. And the reason is I don't want to rely on any one device to do anything too specific for me because I'm always worried it's going to make me lazy. And I don't want to be mentally or physically lazy, and I feel like phones it's easy to be both with a cell phone. But it would be absolutely silly to not recognize that all of us, even me, somebody who doesn't really enjoy having a cell phone, all of us carry a smartphone around, or at least most all of us carry a smartphone around. And we kind of mentioned already that you can use your phone as a flashlight, and a lot of people do, and they don't have need for, their own standalone flashlight. But another place that our phone, I think, is so useful in our everyday is just in wayfinding, information finding. And everything that I was talking about before about, making the light, the test light, and kind of knowing how your world works and being able to engage with your world, that can be enhanced or crippled by your cell phone. So, you've got your main computer here, and then you've got this cool external hard drive that's kind of tapped into the breadth and depth of human knowledge, which is super rad. Doesn't do you much good if you don't already know how things work, but it can be really helpful, like in the situation I'm in right now. So I've been able to test everything. It turns out my starter relay is having an issue making a connection, but I don't know how this bike was wired stock, and I definitely don't know the rat's nest of wiring that the guy before me did on it. So I was able to use my phone. I was able to look up a wiring diagram, bada bing, bada boom. Now I think I might have it figured out. I'm gonna try with you guys to see if we can actually get it to turn over. But before we do that, another consideration with carrying your phone around is, obviously your phone has a limited life battery. And when you're in some random shop or on the side of the road or whatever, it's always a good idea to also have a battery and a battery charger with you, some way or another. We have a great video that kind of breaks down a bunch of different battery charging options. Mainly, I think that's just an important part of being prepared and an important part of being able to help other people as well. So I guess for funsies, let's see if I read the wiring diagram right, and let's see if this thing will turn over or not. Okay, I think we have the right connection. So, Jamie, tap that starter button. Don't hold it, just hit it. Let's see if she turns over. Well, that's exciting. Okay, I honestly didn't think we were gonna get this far. So, crank is not a far cry from start. So I think we might make a run at this thing to try to start it, which really brings us into kind of a fun element in my EDC, and I think in everybody's EDC that you have to consider, and that is kind of the specially tailored tools, because we got a little bit of work before we actually want to try to start this thing. Just like most of our nutritional needs are the same just because we're humans, I would also say that like our daily kind of tool needs on the base level are probably pretty similar as well. And of course, there's a million and one different ways that you can reach those needs. Like you might get your protein from steak and somebody else might get their protein from beans, right? Somebody might carry an automatic knife and you might carry just a regular folding knife. Whatever it may be, there's a million and one ways to tailor kind of those base needs. But when we're really talking about tailoring our EDC, what we're talking about is finding the ways that we engage in the world and that we're not just passive in the world. So our work, our hobbies, our desire to maybe help people out, or our desire to be more self-sufficient, and then building a kit around that idea, building what's in our pockets and potentially what's in our EDC kits as well around those ideas. And I think one way to kind of crystallize what I'm trying to say is looking at, kind of in chronological order, my pocket tools that have stuck around as I've grown and as I've learned and as I've kind of just crystallized some of these ideas. So it started out obviously with just a pocket knife in my pocket, messed around with multi-tools, quite a bit, especially when I was a teenager. Never found anything that I really loved. And then I kind of landed on pocket knife and crescent wrench. Those were kind of my two go-tos, and of course a flashlight. Really hated carrying a crescent wrench in my pocket every day, and that's what was kind of the impetus that started my whole quest to put together an EDC kit for all the traveling I did and for all the other miscellaneous needs that I did, like having tape and super glue and nail clippers and all the things that I use on a pretty regular basis. From there, I experimented a lot with kind of in-pocket simplified multi-tools because I found that plier multi-tools were really useful, but they were kind of cumbersome and they really didn't hit all the things I needed them to hit on a regular basis. So it was like a lot of extra carrying on my person for not a lot of extra utility, I guess you could say. And so, I landed on the Victorinox Compact, a lot of little tools built in. It has a driver. Obviously, I've customized it. I was really happy with that. So it was like pocket knife, crescent wrench, Victorinox. And then I found that I really did want to have a multi-tool on me more often. Specifically, really wanted a pair of pliers just so I could kind of crank on some things. And I love the idea of also being able to just be able to hit bolts without carrying the crescent wrench around or without having to have my EDC kit on my person every second of the day. And that's when I kind of ran into the Nipex Cobra pliers. I think these are the 7-inch ones. I found these things to be absolutely incredible, not just for, using as pliers, but also for nuts and bolts and things of that nature that you need some sort of a driver like that for. And so for me, this spread right here, I wouldn't have been able to get half as far as I had on this bike if I didn't have every single tool that I have in my hand. And I recognize that this is not a normal thing that people do every single day. It is something that I run into pretty often. And that's where I want to kind of finalize this idea of tailoring your EDC. It's about figuring out what you need, what works for you, what keeps you engaged in the world and not just passive in the world, and then making those things work, right? So whether it's a Swiss Army knife in your pocket and that's all you need, awesome. Or maybe you need even more tools that I'm carrying around because you find yourself engaged in types of work or in types of service that require you to be prepared in different ways. And I think that's something that's so cool about Everyday Carry is seeing the different ways that we all find those functions and the different ways that we all engage in the world. So that didn't work out. Really old bike, really old oil line. As you can see, I tried multiple times to just get a couple splices to work so we could turn this thing over. It's not gonna happen. Now, can I get down to where the oil lines are at with my EDC tools? Technically, I could. If I was stranded on the side of the road, I would do it. It's gonna mess up a couple Allen bolts if I were to do it that way. So I'm gonna do it the proper way because I do have my proper tools, but it would be doable with just the EDC tools. But I think we got pretty dang far. And the big thing is I will hope that you're able to take away from this how you can take these same ideas, maybe some of these same tools and these principles and build a really useful, really awesome EDC that, you can enjoy, that's fun, but that's also practical and can get the jobs done that you might be encountering in your daily life. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, huge thanks to Boker for being a sponsor. We honestly would not be able to do half of what we do if it wasn't for all the awesome sponsors we have on the channel. Now, we've said it before, but just so you all know that we only work with sponsors that we want to work with, that are doing good work in the knife community, and that allow us just to have the freedom that we want to do the things that we want to do. Nobody can pay us to say anything about their products. They can send it to us, but they can't pay us to say anything about it. And on that note, you guys have been hearing a lot about the Boker Atlas series. We've showed a couple different versions of it here on the channel. And man, these things are just awesome, slim, cool little workhorses. You can get them in lockbacks or you can get them in slip joints. Obviously this one's taken quite a beating today. Both me and Jamie have been just rotating through a bunch of different versions that they have. They're really awesome. So Thank you, Boker, for sponsoring us. Make sure to check out the Boker Atlas. It's part of the Boker Plus series. Probably have to do a video to break down like all the different Boker versions, because Boker's an interesting brand when it comes to that type of stuff. Either way, check them out. Thank you, Boker. We'll catch you on the next one.